And we are live. Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast for June 3rd, 2019. This is Steve Chung, one of your wonderful hosts for the day, and coming to you live from beautiful Kelowna, British Columbia. I am past master of my local lodge here, Prince Charles Lodge, number 153, and member of the Valley of Vernon Scottish Rite, past thrice puissant Grand Master. And alongside with me today is very worshipful brother David Colbeth from Washington State. And before we get going, got to give that disclaimer. Our thoughts and opinions expressed here are our own, not reflecting those of the Grand Lodges of our jurisdictions or any other concordant bodies. David, good morning. How are you today?
I'm here. How are you doing? It looks like you're in a much more beautiful spot than me. Although it is sunny today, sort of, but I'm inside.
Yeah, well, it's my deck. If I had my choice, I'd be on the beach, right?
I'll have to set up, figure out how to do that setup like you have, and get on my deck one of these days.
Oh yeah, well, it's laptop, mobile.
There you go.
Laptop and cell phone, right? I finally figured out how to make it happen on the cell phone, so
that's great.
Anyways, today talking about making it happen, things in lodge, and being passionate about getting things done in lodge. How long have you been a Mason, David?
Well, it's kind of a fun story. When I became a Mason, my wife was 8 months pregnant, and so I had my investigation when she was 8 months pregnant. So my daughter was born. We had to potentially delay my first degree to if my daughter was born. Sorry, and so I know exactly how long I've been a Mason because my daughter was born a month after I became a Mason. So 11 years. I've been a Mason 11 years.
Wow. Well, at least you even have a date associated.
So if I forget one, then I'm in trouble on the other. Either way. So
yeah. All I really know is October, November, December is when I went through in 1999, right? So yeah. Well, you got something to connect it to. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Right? And both I'm sure are as close to your heart.
How long have you been a Mason?
Well, I've been a Freemason. I got initiated in October 1999, so 20 years this October.
Nice.
Right, and I've been around Freemasonry since I was 14 because I was involved in DMLA.
Right.
And I was gonna join lodge 7 years before I did. In Kamloops, actually, I had petitioned lodge. I went through initiation, or not through initiation, but investigation. I was already set to join, and then I got a job in Kelowna. Right, and then working graveyards and afternoons, there was no way to regularly attend lodge, so there was no way I was going to just join to join, So
yeah.
But I know, speaking about passion in lodge and getting things done, we should express Connor's regrets that he's not here with us today. He's been dealing with some health issues, and I'm sure he'll share those with you when he gets back. But express his regrets.
We're missing him, definitely. It's not been quite the same without him on the show, and so I know he's been working on some vlogs, he said, so hopefully he'll have some shorts that he can share on the channel, and some short videos and stuff that we can share. And I think he was at the celebration, the 100-year DMLA celebration, and a few other events that he may be part of. I think you guys are talking about doing a live broadcast from, or at least some recording at your Grand Lodge too, isn't that right?
Yeah, we're going to take it and go live at Grand Lodge. I believe we've registered Connor in for the banquet, so he can do a vlog, he calls it, a video log of Grand Lodge for um, for the show, and so part of the Grand Lodge experience, we're going to also be interviewing. We've arranged a suite at the hotel so we can do interviews in a quiet space if we need. And I think we're going to go because of Privacy Act and things. We're not going to be as free with respect to the video aspect of it. We were going to walk around with a selfie stick and all that kind of stuff. But privacy laws in Canada kind of prevent that from being as fun an experience as it could be. Because it's like, hi, David, can I get your permission to put you on video camera first? And then can we record the rest of this, and do this over again, and not as fun, right? So I think what the Grand Master said he was going to do is in the banquet, when it gets started, he's going to ask if there's anybody who wishes to not be on video, and we'll identify them and make sure that we don't include them in video.
Sure.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it should be fun. It's going to be a neat experience either way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got the business cards that we sent you?
Yep, I did.
Yeah. Yep. Start spreading those around. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe you can do something at your Grand Lodge. Do you have a little tripod?
Yeah, we can I'll have something set up for ours for sure. I haven't talked to Grandmaster about that piece of it necessarily yet, but I think we're okay down here.
And when is your Grand Lodge?
That's the 14th, 15th weekend before, I think yours.
Yeah, the weekend before. Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be a busy couple of weeks in June.
Sure.
With my birthday next Monday.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll be busy times. But that's okay. Those who make it happen are busy guys, right?
That's for sure. You want something to have a busy person do it, right?
That's right. In your lodge, how you participate a lot. You do a lot of things to make things happen in lodge.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the treasurer actually as an installed officer, and of course past master and past district deputy, and so I've been pretty busy with a lot of that stuff over in the last 11 years. And I'm also on the building management board. We have our meeting tonight actually on that, and I just became a member of the Scottish Rite building board. So plus I'm chairman for DMLA and 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason, and chairman. My daughter is now a Rainbow Girl, and so we're a pretty busy family.
Right. And so, but you're very active in lodge.
Yeah,
and active in very various bodies, if you will. But in each body, are you a very active person?
I try to be, of course, and try to be available to talk to guys and answer questions, and I do quite a bit of ritual work, and so we degree work and installations and different things. So yeah, I guess Blue Lodge. I personally like the idea of focusing. I use the phrase "dance with the one that brung you." So the Blue Lodge to me is home, and if a guy's going to be busy anywhere, he should be busy in Blue Lodge, I think, and in his home lodge. And so, and then if there's time, then you can go out and be busy in other areas. But I believe if a guy says, like for example, I don't go to Scottish Rite meetings, honestly, because that's the Tuesday night that the DMLA meets, and so I prioritize DMLA, the growth and development of the boys, over growth and development of my other brothers. I mean, they can grow and develop themselves. They're adults. And so I want to be as much as I can be involved in the DMLA. And then, for example, tomorrow night would normally be DMLA, but my daughter has a choir concert, and so family is focused on that. So family comes first for that event. So tomorrow night I won't be at DMLA, but they all understand that I'm at every other event that I can be at. But in Blue Lodge, yeah, go ahead.
So it sounds to me Like, you must be one of the clowns in the shrine unit, or you must be a clown in the Shriners unit that can juggle, because you're juggling a lot of different things at the same time, brother.
Yeah. People look at my calendar on my phone and they say, God, is that the stock market? I said, no, it's just my calendar.
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate it because I'm very involved in my valley. The DeMolay aren't here anymore, so I don't have that, and the Job's daughters aren't either, so I don't have that. But I do have Scottish Rite, and I manage the calendar for our district, and I do the texting program for our district, and I'm very active in our mentor program that with more light night and bringing guys through the process of initiation. So yeah, I do a lot with the lodge, and I guess because we're the busy guys, we're the ones they come to make stuff happen. We got got to get this done. How are we gonna do that? And they come to us, right? Which is great because that saying, you get out of it what you put into it, and I think the more you're there, regardless in what aspect it is, whether it's partaking in degrees or doing individual lectures or helping a guy through the process, it can all be rewarding, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice to see you spending time with the DeMolay, even though you don't have a son, because I'll tell you, funny experience. Senior DeMolay, wife was a Joby. I had 2 Jobies, but yet I was the chapter dad for the local DeMolay chapter. Spent my time there because they needed it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, in making it happen for DeMolay at the time it was here, most rewarding thing I ever did. And as they say, what you get out of it is what you put into it. And when I was young and there was a chapter dad who put effort and heart into me, and I got to do that back, so it's that cycle of the things we do in lodge. So the guys that are at lodge are usually very willing to take on more parts and things, and I don't know, I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, we've got a really fantastic chapter dad currently, and he was chapter dad before for several years, and then took a little bit of a break. And another awesome guy, kind of a newer Mason in our lodge, his son was coming up through the ranks, and so he took chapter dad for 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and then he had to move on, and then the guy's back again, the same guy's back again, and he's a school teacher. Really, I learned quite a bit from him and his mentoring skills. He's amazing with the guys. He can connect with them on multiple levels, and so I learn a lot from him in development because again, I don't have boys, and so I'm always asking him how this work and how's that work. And anyway, so he's been great. He wants to move on to some other things, and so now we're kind of looking for a new chapter dad, and I just don't have the bandwidth, or I guess I probably could do it, but I don't have the bandwidth to help with that. And so we're kind of in a spot where we need somebody to help with that. But I wanted to ask about your more light night. Do you have a particular program that you follow, or is it just, hey, we have this event on this night, anybody can talk about anything, or what is that? Can you talk about that more light night?
Remember the description of the podcast I gave you 10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And pretty much that. The more light night is moderated by one guy, whoever that is for the night.
Yeah.
But it's a casual conversation about any topic. It's the topics are driven by the participants. So if they want to talk about lodge structure, or if they want to talk about the meanings behind something, or if they want to talk about aprons, titles, and those types of things, that's what we talk about, right? It's sometimes if we're going to have somebody do some homework on something, like one of the guys is going to do some homework and do a little presentation about esotericism in Freemasonry, right? And That's going to be now. He couldn't make it this past Monday, so we had this impromptu, casual conversation. Sound familiar? And it was great. One of the new guys asked about how. His question was, has anybody had any experiences with our ritual symbolisms and a connection to something in their life, an event, a moment, or things like that? And there were several guys around the room that had some either aha moment or some real revelation, or when they were doing a lecture and practicing a verse, how that resonated in their life at that moment, and how it affected their thought, their thinking pattern, and maybe improved themselves internally, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, right? Just that whole how it brings out more genuine experience and knowledge to share is incredible, because the guys in the room vary, and we had 9 different guys than we had before, right? We had 4 repeats and 5 new guys, right? So, and the time before we had 3 new guys and 12 repeats, right? So it's always varying, which is kind of really cool.
Is that weekly or monthly, or how often do you have it?
We're doing that once a month.
Once a month.
Right? Yeah. And the interesting thing is, we this past Thursday we had it, and it was the impromptu casual conversation. What do we want to talk about? What do you guys want to learn? What can we help? Right? And our worshipful master is going to try and adopt this into the form of education in our lodge, where we put the lodge at refreshment, and do where he'll give freedom of the floor to every member, so we can have a casual conversation about the education topic for the night.
We call that shrink the lodge in our area, where basically the same idea is that you get what I did when I was master. I went to refreshment, and then I had everybody get in a circle around the secretary's desk, and so there's no second row. Everybody was on the first row, so we all were facing each other, and there was nobody could sit behind somebody, so they couldn't have they wouldn't have to look behind them. But they all got together, and we basically shrunk the lodge, we call it, and then we had that conversation about things. Somebody would kind of lead it a little bit, and people would drag things out and talk about it.
Yeah, that's what somebody else said they do, is well, I know I didn't hear the shrinking, but where everybody's down on the level, and all their chairs, and they're supposed to be arm width apart, so everybody's comfortable, but everybody's just like in that circle kind of thing. And let's talk about this, right? And that was a suggestion that we had last Thursday at our meeting, as to how we can do it in lodge, and that's a really good idea.
Yeah, we it's funny, there's so much you could talk about in Masonry, of course, and then as I was trying to develop my plan as master, I was in the 11th hour and thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about each month? And I thought, okay, I'll just do in the back of our constitutions, or we call it the code down here, is Mackey's 25 laws of Masonry, landmarks of Masonry. And so I said, okay, we'll just break those out into 2 or 3 per night. And so we covered 2 or 3 of Mackey's landmarks each meeting. And some of them, nobody had the discussion. Nobody disagreed with them or anything. It was just kind of read them, and we talked about it a little bit. And there were some that had some pretty lengthy discussion about opinions about the landmarks, which was kind of fun. So it was nice to do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's amazing what you learn, the history you find your brethren have, and when they can speak freely about a topic.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, really, you were a ship's captain and you did this? Wow, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
Navigated the Fuca Strait and talked about all this kind of stuff. All of it. What a segue! It was like, wow. the things you learn in lodge, right?
Yeah.
And actually that was one of the things that the guys were talking about, getting more opportunities to get to know your brethren as to who they really are.
Yeah.
And kudos to Right Worshipful Brother Butch Schoenhardt. In his year, he had this thing where, as district deputy, every official visit, he had a bio on somebody, and he read it out, and then he had that brother stand up and be introduced to, and it was like, really, wow, who'd have thought? Why, nice quiet guy sitting there in the corner. He's done all of that. Oh, and then of course, what I think is the whole cherry on top of everything in Freemasonry is carpooling, right? Now that you've heard those kinds of things about a brother, and you end up sitting in a car with him for 2 hours or an hour, going back and forth up and down the valley, the stories being told, even stories from traveling, you hear back in the day where things were done from ear to mouth, and traveling salesmen would meet with different lodges along their routes because it took so long to travel and so on, right? Well, this guy lived that, and he had so many cool stories to tell about the brethren he met, and the places, and how he was welcomed, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. I'm curious about the more light night. We call it, have been calling it, our Lodge of Instruction, and we have it on the third Monday, and it's either a topic or a fluid conversation. It kind of depends on who's there, and like you said, what happens. And when I was deputy, it was really focused around our proficiency in lodge management, or we have a 2-part proficiency in lodge management, where it's a verbal. You have to be able to open and close and call up and down or go to refreshment, all the ritual stuff. And there's the open book constitutions, the code test, basically, to make sure they understand but it's all open book. They can find all the answers. And so that was the focus for before, but then that kind of changed, and we're now just conversations or ritual. Like last month, we did kind of a deacons and stewards training for some of the new guys that were there, showing them how to hold their rods and how to some of the floor work and stuff. That's ideas, and language, and that kind of thing. We're one of our lodges in near us. They have, stewards seem like they just kind of sit and lodge sometimes, and they don't really do a whole lot during the meeting, and they're just there for entertainment and pretty, I guess. But so one of the lodges here has them, when the marshal goes, we do a flag presentation. I don't know if you guys do that as part of your ritual. We bring the flag to the east, and so they actually have the stewards escort the marshal, kind of in a military presentation. So I was teaching the new guys how they did that. So I'm thinking we're going to add that to our lodge. It's kind of a neat piece of floor work that is gives them something to do instead of just sitting there in the chair.
Yeah. Get them involved. Yeah, our stewards, they participate in the degrees. They get the candidates prepared and that kind of thing. But other than that, they don't really have any job. But I've always tried to figure out the job of the junior deacon, right? Because what's the description of his job? Most of the Canadian work. To carry messages from the senior warden to the worshipful master through the brother senior deacon. I've never seen them carry any messages back and forth, right? Ever. So his real duty in lodge is to help in the initiation and degrees, I believe, because that's where the work comes in for the junior deacon.
Right.
That pillar lecture for us, right?
Yeah. I'd be curious to know more about that. We'll have to talk offline about that. We don't have the junior deacon for us is very minimal part in a degree.
Oh, well, in the fellowcraft degree, there's the 3, 5, and 7. And there's the pillar lecture that precedes the 3, 5, and 7.
Yeah.
Right. In our lodge, in our ritual work, the junior deacon does the pillar lecture, and then when the candidates progress to the 3, 5, and 7, that get taken over by the senior deacon.
Oh, really?
And he does that part of the lecture.
That's kind of a cool. division. I like that.
Yeah, well, as they pass through the pillars, that's where it separates, right? And it gave the junior deacon an introductory piece to, that's not near as long as the 3, 5, and 7, right?
Sure.
And because that's a long one in itself, especially for the senior deacon who's got a lot of work in the degree to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So
cool. I'll have to look at that. We've had in our jurisdiction, memorization requirements aren't as strict, I guess I should say, or there's a handful of guys that know all of the work or a lot of the work and do lectures and stuff, and so and unfortunately some of them are becoming aged, and as our past Grand Master Jim Mendoza mentioned, he delivered that speech in Portland to that lodge that talked about the oaks are falling, I think he called it, where the idea of the aged senior Masons, not just people that have been around a long time, but the older guys physically are passing on, and their knowledge and abilities, especially lecture memorization, is going away with them. And so what we've tried to do in our lodge is to divide up some of the lectures into 4, 5, 6 people parts, and then each of us deliver a section of it. And the hope is over the next 10 years or so, or 5 years, whatever, that we'll continue to rotate those parts, and then learn a different piece.
Lectures are you talking about the lectures that are done in the degrees typically by lodge officers?
See, we don't have lodge officers do that. We got away from that at some point in the last 30 years or 40 years. At some point it changed that the lodge officers don't do those degrees and don't do those lectures anymore. It's usually an outside lecturer. Some of the lodges have developed a guy or two that do know those lectures, but the officers generally aren't required to do that. It used to be a requirement to be able to advance, right, to do that, but not anymore with us.
Yeah, as a message of rite of passage, if you will, to prove that you're capable of that amount of work. And there's been many discussions over the years about having degree teams rather than the officers having to do that on their way through. But there's the old mindset where rite of passage, you got to prove your way through, because if you can't do the big job at the end, why would we put you all the way through to see you fail, right? So if you're not capable, then it makes it a problem, right? So we managed to do more coaching for our officers to help them through that. And then the ones who really struggle, we find replacements to do that. But it's funny, when we talk about the old guard dying off and we're not being able to come out and participate and do these things, how history gets lost. And we were talking about this very recently in our lodge. We had about 10 years ago, we had a separation in lodge where some guys left lodge and they got at odds and they demitted, right? So we lost 5, 7 guys to that. And then in the next 5 years, we lost 10 guys to cancer.
Wow.
Right? And we were talking the other day. It started talking about things that are tradition in our lodge, and we should write these things down, because pretty soon the old guard's not going to be here to tell us what it is.
Right.
The 3 of us realized, oh shit, we're the old guard now, right? Like, oh no, right? And we're really in trouble now, right? Because it's just really, there's a couple of other older gentlemen that they don't come to lodge anymore. They can't. And there's a couple that spend 6, 7 months a year south, right? So we don't see those snowbirds as often. So now we got to start writing this stuff down, because Otherwise, it'll get lost.
How would you do that? I've been contemplating that idea too. We had a couple of lodges in our district that have developed what they call either landmarks or the bylaw addenda that, while they're not part of the bylaws, they're not really official. They're things that the lodge believes strongly enough to add them to the bylaws as addenda, and I think they're calling them landmarks or pillars, and maybe a ritual requirement or other things like that. And so again, while they're not a bylaw, they are strongly suggested and written down, as you say. I've been thinking about doing that for our lodge as well, but it's like, when you start writing stuff down, then you feel like you got to do it, and some guys still aren't ready to do that yet.
Well, if it's a tradition,
is that do you have it written down in your bylaws or something, or how do you? Or is
no,
it just?
We don't, but that's what we're talking about doing. Is putting an addenda to the bylaws that it's lodge traditions. Some guys will argue the position of the three lesser lights around the altar, right? And one guy will set them up, and you find another guy just before lodge, he's switching them around because the wrong position. No, that's the way we do it in our lodge, right?
Yeah.
And our lodge has its own ritual, which precedes that of the United Grand Lodge of British Columbia, right? So we are one of very few lodges in our jurisdiction that has its own ritual, right? And can do things that are different from everybody else, right? So, but if the reasons for these things, because it's one thing to tell a guy, no, we do this way. It's another thing to tell a guy, we do this way because, or for this reason, right? Yeah. And that's what we're writing down, and we're going to make an addenda to our bylaws so that we have that, because one day we could all us travelers, all us active guys in lodge could be in the same bus that goes to takes us to the Great Lodge above. So if that happens, somebody better have this stuff on paper or on the computer, anyways.
Yeah. What kind of how many do you have? How many members do you have in your lodge?
I believe we have now just 50 members in our lodge.
Okay.
On the books, we have it's 44 on the books, I believe, and we have about 20 that are active, that are regular participants. We have 10 that everything takes priority before lodge, so
sure.
They don't come. There's sojourners, right? We got about 10 of those, and then we got 10 guys that really can't attend. 10, 12 guys that can't get out to lodge because of their age or health, or live on the coast or something like that.
Sure. So do you find, when you talk about having the requirements for advancement, do you find I hate to use the word recycling, but supporting, there's members that are supporting the lodge in various roles on a regular basis?
Our lodge has been fortunate enough to every now and then recycle a past master as a principal officer. But that hasn't, that only happens every odd year, every few years, right? When the curse of the senior deacon happens, that usually happens every year, but we've been fortunate enough to have another guy or two that want to step up and advance, right? When the curse of that senior deacon, they get too ambitious, they take on too much, and then they get burned out, and then they don't have time, and then they can't go through the line, right? So we do have, our lodge is also fortunate that we have several past masters that are active and take sedentary roles. Like I'm the lodge historian, though I'm the worst record keeper in the world. It's a place that they could put me in and keep me as an officer, right? there's other, but I do many other things, and I'm on several committees, right?
Yeah.
But there are all except 2 past masters that are capable do come out and participate.
Yeah.
And are regular attenders.
Do your committees, do you meet, are they pretty active? And we have committees, but they're very fluid. They don't, unfortunately, it's not a lot of structure in our committee systems.
There's a structure to our committee systems, but do they function properly? For the most part.
Yeah.
Right. Every now and then, committee members can't make a meeting, and it has to do a lot.
Do you do committee meetings separately from lodge, or do you at the night of the lodge, or?
They're totally separate and run outside on our personal time, so that we have more flexibility on these things, right?
Yeah. A good friend of mine was talking about how I think it was Ohio that does this. I could be wrong, but there's some other jurisdictions that they run, and I describe it as a consent agenda for, like, in city government or in governments, they'll have so many things on the agenda. Instead of trying to discuss every item in the meeting, they have their, community development and public safety and all that kind of stuff for the city, right? They have all these little committees. If you want to get your message or talk about what's happening in the city or the state or county or whatever, you have to go to that committee and talk with them, and then the committee makes a recommendation to the master council, and then they vote on that. And so then the city council, whatever, has, when in their meeting, their business will only take 5 minutes because they say everything's on the consent agenda. They might pull one piece off and have an open discussion if there's something major happening, but usually it's a consent agenda, and they pass everything on the list. And so the same idea in this Masonic lodge, or in this jurisdiction, I think it's Ohio, they have very structured committees. I think you said they meet before the meeting. And so if you want to have a discussion or talk about something that's happening, you have to go to that table and sit with that committee and talk with them and convince them that your idea or your whatever is happening, and that committee then makes the recommendation to the master, and then all the committee's opinions or recommendations are voted on by lodge, essentially in a consent agenda item, and there really isn't any discussion in lodge. I suppose if there's an emergent thing or urgent thing, they could, but interesting idea. It took me a little while to get comfortable with the thought of it. I had to ponder on it for a few days and decide if I would be open to that, but it sure would seem like, to make the business move really fast, that you can get right into the focus on education or other things that are probably more of a priority than just paying bills or.
Well, our committees, I don't know, we never really have a bunch of people that want to put any input in from outside of the committees, right?
Yeah.
And so our committees report to our board of general purpose, and then anything that needs to be discussed on about what's going on with the committee can be discussed at the board of general purpose by everybody, so that we don't have to have a bunch of different meetings, right? That's really the purpose of a board of general purpose, right? Is exactly that, general purpose. We take care. All of our committee heavy conversations and updates happen at the board of general purpose, and then they're briefly reported on inside the Blue Lodge, right? But generally, our committees just do their own thing outside of everything. They report to the board of general purpose.
Yeah, we don't have that board. We don't have that board of general purposes.
Oh, well, you're kind of doing that without calling it the same thing, by having a meeting of committees before your meeting.
Which we don't do that. That's another jurisdiction.
Oh, that's another jurisdiction?
Yeah,
they do that.
Cool idea. Yeah.
Okay. You guys just deal with everything inside a lodge?
Unfortunately, a lot of times. And so, it should be a 30-second vote. Everybody say yes, yes, because it's been discussed at length. Ends up being a 30-minute discussion about who's bringing the potholders to the next fundraiser. I mean, not literally, but I'm allowed.
Yeah. All that happens at our board of GP. So we did that a long time ago, where pretty much the majority of the business in lodge, it gets taken care of at a board of general purpose meeting and presented to lodge, and recommendations from the board to pass all of these or do this or don't do that, right? Whatever recommendations come forth from the membership. And we encourage the membership to attend the board of general purpose. We usually have these every other month, an hour prior to regular meeting, so that it's not another night.
Yeah.
Right. And then, if there's a lot of things on the agenda, we might do it, an hour and a half before a regular meeting. But
do you have a dinner of any kind before or after?
After, we have usually sandwiches or cold cuts and that kind of thing after the meeting, and it's more social. The bar is open and whatnot afterwards. Long gone are the days of rolling out of there at 2 a.m. But they changed all the laws on us, and now we're out of there by midnight at the latest now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can remember that was the more social aspect of lodge. 10:30 you're out of lodge.
So when your meetings start at 7:30, what time do they start?
Yeah, our meetings start at 7:30. Right.
And then how long do they go usually?
Generally, we're a regular meeting with not a lot going on. We're out in an hour or less, hour and a half on the outside. So 9:30 on the outside, we go to festive board, right? Back in the day before all the laws changed, we were there until 2 in the morning. 1, 2 in the morning, we're closing the bar, right?
Is it a structured thing afterwards, or is it kind of just loose? Everybody's just hanging out.
Depends on the worshipful master of the day. For the most part, it's loose, right? Some worshipful masters have tried to move education or a component of education into it. I tried to do some of that, and it worked for getting people to stick around.
Yeah.
Right. We had tried formal at one point, but not everybody wants to stick around that long.
Yeah.
Right. Go through formal stuff. They just had an hour or 2 hours of formal stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So they didn't really want a formal festive board.
Yeah.
We do that. We do those at our banquets, and we don't do formal festive boards anymore.
Yeah.
Because the guys want to socialize. That's where they, can get together. But one thing we did do is we made the table smaller for our festive board, so that there's not groups over here and over there and whatnot. It's everybody's around the same small table.
Yeah.
Right.
We have round tables, and there used to be 7, 8, 10 tables set up, and be 2 guys at one and 5 at another, and just so I'm the rental manager also, among other things. And so it does help to make the room look bigger as well. But I shrunk it down to 4 or 5 tables that are out all the time only, and so it helps to bring that cohesive group together, and people. It's more intimate to have the guys closer together.
Take all your round tables, right, and make a funny shaped table.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And just make a funny shaped table where it might not look right, but that's okay. Do this when you have one of those kinds of festive board things, right? And make it different every time. And then people are always sitting around, but they're not sitting at individual tables.
Yeah.
It's all one big table, right? And you can make all. One of my buddies used to do this for his Rotary thing and make it all different all the time, and just change the configuration of the 8 round tables, right?
Yeah.
And make something different. You can have fun with it.
Sure.
At least, like you say, they're not all segregated, right?
Yeah. Cool. I'll have to give that a try. Maybe line them up in a big line one day and put them a circle another time.
Yeah. Well, if you put a bunch of circles on a table and you just sit there and move them around, right? But they're all together, right?
Yeah.
You can start to envision. Do I need 8 tables? Do I need 9 tables to be able to make something really, that can just be moved around regular, because obviously there's going to be a couple tables that end up being in the middle that aren't being used because there's nobody can sit on any edge of it, right? So you gotta try that. You do it this way first. Cut out some round circles at home, put it on the kitchen table, and keep them all touching, and see how many tables works for your space, because it's more important to work for your space, right?
Right. Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot.
How big's your lodge hall?
Unfortunately, it's a funny L shape, and so it's about 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet, but it's L shaped, and so it's a little bit difficult to do some of those things, but we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, you can do a funny L shaped thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Connect it all.
Yeah.
That's been our format. So you're back to something you said earlier. You called that thing where you shrink your lodge.
Yeah.
Lodge of instruction. That's funny because I did
the Monday night. We call it shrink the lodge when we do that.
Okay.
The lodge of instruction is the separate night specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so the lodge of instruction, I did some research online in order to get to this more light night.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd come across was a lodge of instruction document that I got actually from I think it was a Canadian Freemason connection on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
And that's what it was called, Lodge of Instruction. And I took out all the stuff with the Worshipful Master and stuff like that for any of the organizing thing of it, so that the moderator could be a different person, right? And use that as the foundation to build the concept for the more light night.
I'll have to get that from you. I was just watching one of our fellow Masonic podcasts the other day, and I don't get a lot of time to do that, but the title intrigued me, and they had a couple of guys from the East Coast, from Maine, that are their Grand Lodge instruction guys, and they were talking about Lodge of Instruction, and it sounds like all of them have actually a district level Lodge of Instruction, which would be awesome to have out here. We kind of tried to develop that the 2 years that I was deputy, and then the 2 years following me, and it didn't really take off too much, but we kind of we still do it. It's still available, but it's not officially a district event. But they were talking, I think it was North Carolina, Grand Lodge of North Carolina has some pretty amazing Lodge of Instruction or education stuff online. So I was going to go and dig into that a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, this more light night is actually turning into more of a district event.
Yeah.
Because there's so many lodges within hailing distance. It takes them an hour and 15 minutes to get here, right?
Yeah.
So we've had guys coming up from the south and down from the north for this, which is really cool.
Nice.
It's not just our lodge thing, right? But it's going to be really neat, actually, to see if the Worshipful Master pulls this off and makes it a regular part of our meetings, right? And it gets carried forward from the next Worshipful Master. That's the key, right? If that can happen, then I can see attendance and visitations to our lodge growing, because if we're getting guys hitchhiking with other guys to, hey, I'm trying to find a ride out here just to come to the more light night.
Yeah.
And we got guys drove almost 2 hours to come for a more light night.
Wow.
Right. So if it's getting that kind of response, it's got to have the same effect in lodge. If we can move that into our lodge and we can get guys coming to our lodge meetings, I would much rather have all that in lodge than have to spend an extra night in a month doing this.
Right. For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I believe that's where it belongs. But again, that's one of those things that we got to get into that traditions page and into our bylaws, that we do this in our meetings, right? Otherwise, Worshipful Master comes and says, I don't want to do that. And then it stops, right? So let's hope that it continues.
That's where a long range plan is important. That was my duty at the Grand Lodge level for a couple of years recently, and creating a long range plan and following it, having everybody on the same page is difficult, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, apparently they've done that in our BC Grand Lodge in the last few years. We worked hard to get to there, but all of the current Grand Lodge officers are all in sync with a particular long range plan that's for lodge period, and then there's their own agendas outside of that. But they've all agreed on this linear plan, which is great because it's consistency is the only way to make it happen, right? We're gonna continue to do our more light nights until such time we see a difference in the lodge attendance. If our lodge education pieces start to garner that attendance, and these guys will come down for it, then I think we'll shift the focus to our lodge. The really nice thing about it being a district thing, though, is that I believe if we kept it on a district level, we could move it from lodge to lodge, right? And that would, I believe, encourage different levels of participation. Because there's guys, if the guys will travel 2 hours, I'll travel. I'd travel in the valley for a more late night. I'd travel for that one, right? So if we had it where it was moving around from lodge to lodge, I think it would have a much greater impact district wise, anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
But I noticed that our time is coming to an hour. We didn't think we'd fill a half hour. And, we can't talk for much about a half hour. We're going to be boring, right? And who knows? I don't know. Was there anybody on the sidelines? Did they come out to play? Or
there's not really too many comments. I think Connor was on there and commenting about some things, but no questions necessarily that I could bring up.
All right, cool. And I didn't see anything on Facebook either. So
just want to remind everyone we appreciate any reviews or comments, and give us a thumbs up and hit the notification button the bell if you want to be notified of upcoming podcasts and other things happening as well.
Yeah, and speaking of that up and coming things, I thought it'd be interesting concept. See how you're going to be going to your Grand Lodge, and I am. We talked to the incoming worshipful Grand Masters. I'm thinking that every week we could report on what's our Grand Master up to this week, right?
We do that, yeah.
And promote their activities in our jurisdictions, right?
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that would increase our viewership too.
Yeah. And speaking next week, we've got very worshipful brother Zane McCune coming back to talk with who is it from BC that he's going to be talking with?
Dave Blossom. He was the original founder. He's the guy who did the logo for our podcast.
Oh, perfect.
And he's they're coming to talk about esoteric Freemasonry.
Yeah, it should be a good discussion. I'm looking forward to that discussion. That's one of those things that we could spend 6 hours talking about probably, and it'll be interesting to see how it weaves and winds in a short format like that.
Depends on how far down the rabbit hole they want to go, I guess, because I don't really know much about it, so I'm pretty much going to ensure that other than the beginning, you won't see my face on that podcast because I'll just be sitting taking it all in. I'm sure it's going to be quite interesting because not knowing anything about the topic. I mean, you look up the word and the definition, and sure, Freemasonry is esoteric in the sense of just the knowledge it shares with its members, right? Yeah. But I'm sure these guys are going to go down some rabbit holes, right?
There's the, like you talked about, there's the ritual, and then there's the meaning or the work, and there's the meaning behind the ritual and the work, and that's generally what we talk about when we say esoteric. But then there's guys that go even further down and just try and symbolism, some additional information too. And then there's the really, I appreciate the effort that people are willing to try and research and learn about that, and it helps them become better people and helps them fulfill their life, and that's important.
Well, as I say, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. And, if they didn't do it, I'd probably have to do it. And I don't have any desire to do it. So, it's like, it's a good thing there's plumbers, because I sure as heck wouldn't want that job either,
Speaking of upcoming, sorry, that's not a good transition for who's our next guest. But before we hang up here, we got a couple minutes. So next week we got the esoteric discussion, and then in 2 weeks, I'm really excited. We got Nathan Tweedie, who is working at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Something else that we don't necessarily know a whole lot about baseball, even though I guess I know a little bit more than you. I do know how the game's played, but I don't know any stats or scores or anything. So I don't know. But anyway, Nathan's going to talk to us about the Baseball Hall of Fame and importantly, most worshipful Jim Mendoza, who's a huge baseball fan and friends of Nathan, will be back. So again, we may be able to just kind of coast on the conversation in 2 weeks and let those guys talk about Freemasonry and baseball connections.
Well, we may actually have most worshipful brother Doug Collins on as a regular host by then too, and I believe he's a big sports guy.
Great.
And so that could be very interesting. But looking forward to the next couple of weeks of shows and interacting with our guests. So hopefully we have some people to ask these guys some pointed questions.
Speaking of that, most worshipful Jim is online, and he made a quick comment. He said that 20% of the Hall of Famers from baseball are Freemasons.
Wow. 20%. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
Wow.
It should be a good show. I think we should make sure everybody knows about it.
Yeah, and how big is the membership of the Hall of Fame?
So this is the danger I've had at in business. I know in our businesses we need to network with people, and I thought, I know sports is an important topic. So I would watch Sports Center at night, and I'd get the little facts and figures, and I watch the videos, and so I'd be out at a party or something, and I'd say, "Oh, hey, did you see that play, or did you see that touchdown, whatever?" And they go, "Yeah," and then they want to ask me a bunch more questions that I have no idea. It would have been better. Not to start. So see, I only know the fact that he just gave me. I don't know anything more.
yeah, right. So it'll be fun. Yeah. I know the basics of baseball, and I like baseball because of the non-violent factor.
Sure.
That's one of my favorite sports. Well,
although non-violent, as long as you're not in the way of a baseball coming off a bat at a line drive.
Yeah. I did that when I was a kid. I took the ball in the right eye and looking up. Where's the ball? Oh yeah, there it's right in my eye. Yeah. It turned me right off. Yeah.
Well, River said these topics are rather interesting, so I think we're going to work hard over the next couple of weeks to put together a series of topics, whether we have guests or it's just our conversation or whatever. We're going to put together a series of topics and conversations we'll have coming forward.
I wonder if River has any suggestions for topics he'd like to hear. He's a regular listener. If you have any suggestions for topics, River, email them to us at info@theworkingtoolspodcast.com. Awesome. And we'll be happy to do that, or put them in the message there in the chat window, and David will record them. We'll get these topics handled for you, brother. I can call him brother because I'm also a senior DMLA. So I got the pleasure of meeting Brother Peatman at the Centennial Celebration, and I presented him with that really cool jacket that I got.
Awesome. And he says he'll do that, so hopefully he'll email us.
Excellent. Really nice kid, sharp. He's gonna accomplish great things in DMLA, and I'm sure down further in life in Masonry. I'm sure he's just that kind of kid, right? So it'll be a natural for him. But anyways, I think it's time to wrap it up. What do you think? Sounds like a sayonara for until next week.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, everybody, you have a great day. And like David said, if you like us and comment and review us, they like that. So have an awesome week, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Bye now.